welcome everybody. We are here on the Chainlink stand at Cybos, and I'm here with Marco, a good friend of me because we used to be colleagues at Six Digital Exchange, and we're going to talk about how the project is evolving at SDX, but also chat about a few maybe challenges and opportunities on the next steps towards the future scaling of infrastructures. So SDX has done an amazing job at building an infrastructure that serves well the Swiss market. We know, you and I, that it's not necessarily easy to scale to billions and billions and billions of assets, especially if we're looking at more open architecture in the future. What do you think is missing, I would say, for the scaling, not only at SDX, but also globally, of the native issuance of assets on-chain?
Yep. Thank you, Alex, and hello, everyone. It's a good question, and I mean, we have a common background, as you said. We did a lot of experience in exactly this space, tackling exactly this question so far. I would summarize, I mean, first of all, there are many fundamentals that need to be there. You know, fundamentals at all levels, regulatory fundamentals, operational, technical, partnership with important players such as, national bank, like in this case. This is very important. But I think the main limiting factor maybe has to do with the good old education standardization. You know, it takes the right mindset to understand the end game, the target state, and this one you cannot. I mean, as you well know, you can only answer when you start looking into tackling the question of why digital. What can you get out of it? What's the benefit you can achieve by applying this technology to business models and to use cases, and which is what we are doing right now at SDX. Because I mean, and at Six, we have invested so much time and experience in building up the fundamentals, and only over the last year, I would say, we have started really turning on the machine on the use cases. So this is, I think, for adoption, mass adoption, it takes education, widespread knowledge, first of all, but also have the fundamentals in terms of interoperability and in terms of standardization.
Absolutely. So one of those fundamentals is also, of course, regulations and having the right regulatory framework to be able to operate. In the SDX case, when Six case, you're actually leveraging existing setup like CSDs and exchange, which is great, and also the work with the Swiss National Bank on the CBDC side. Part of that is, of course, compliance to NKYB, KYC, and understanding who deals with what. So how important is it? And do you think that the current way of doing compliance and KYB, KYC is adapted, I would say, to what we're trying to achieve with digital assets and decentralization and tokenization?
I think, well, it's, to your question, how important it is, it's fundamental. I think it's fundamental because, I mean, we are talking about institutional cases, scale investment, institutional and other, working with other regulated parties. So it's really essential to have a regulated and therefore compliant offering out there. That's fundamental. Now, having said that, I think it's a good point. There is a lot of innovation even in terms of compliance. I sense in my past, even before Six, that compliance is seen as a burden of sorts. You know, we also need to do compliance. But I think actually we are moving towards a place where the provision of services changes. So changes in the nature of what services are offered by whom and through which channels, including more open architectures, including, for example, public blockchains or similar. And I think in that space it becomes even more relevant to bring precise compliance at the right place at the right time. So it's really about
ad hoc compliance rather than
exactly ubiquitous compliance, something like this. And I think I even go as far as predicting, quite frankly, that compliance can become a service offering. So it can move from being a cost center to a profit center of sorts. I mean, lots of institutions, including ourselves, have information about our customer base. We know who our customers are. So this information can act as an enabling part in offering new novel services.
Absolutely. So you mentioned standards also as a very important enabler for interoperability and even adoption of new technologies and new processes. So with standards, you have standards like the DTI, for example, digital token identifier that I believe SDX is using, the LEI, which I believe you're also leveraging for onboarding of your customers, on identity itself, so on the LEI or legal entity identifier, but also on other identity systems. How important it is, in your view, based on what you just discussed, for this ad hoc, on-time almost compliance approach?
I think, well, so if you build a house, that's basically the bricks and mortar, I would say, because you, not from a provider perspective, from a consumer perspective, you want to use a variety of services from a variety of providers. And I mean, imagine having to go through the process of identifying yourself or even verifying your additional data of who you actually are for any single service you want to use. So this is no-go. This is a real limitation for our adoption, once again. So I think it's really, if you look at the ubiquity of this use case, it's really important to have a single way to identify who you are. Then, I mean, I distinguish, as you know, between identity and the credentials. So what can you do with identity? And I mean, I know who I am, and I have enough burden privately in the private life with, dozens of different accounts. I would like to simplify this as much as possible to say, I know who I am. I want to prove who I am once, ideally, but then be able to tap into different types of services, different credentials, if you like, leveraging the same identity. So I think this is, especially in a fast-paced environment as we are now, where there are new announcements by the day of new platforms and new services, new initiatives. I think it's key to not lose track of this important topic as we progress at light speed on the other elements.
Yeah, not on the script, but actually this weekend the EID Swiss vote was very voted positive. So there will be an EID system. That's pretty much going to what you're saying, right? So having a digital identity to which you can attach credentials to perform some activities, driving, but also buying an asset, accredited investor status, those type of things. That's what we're referring to, right?
That is the general idea. Yes, exactly.
Exactly. So for companies, obviously, as you know, we're building something similar, which is the VLEI, and it's really the same objectives. It's enabling companies to prove what they allowed to do, able to do, whether they issued a specific token, be able to also, in a verifiable way, demonstrate control over an asset or control over a wallet. Do you think those type of technologies will help with scaling at scale globally with what you're doing and what the industry is doing in digital asset, but not only in traditional finance as well?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think one of the main premise behind the, let's say, digital transformation effort is to allow the market to reduce overhead, reduce duplicate processing and frictions, and therefore rely on having what people call composability, right? To have multiple parties who don't necessarily trust or maybe like each other, but collaborate on a single workflow, each contributing a piece of the puzzle, basically. And I mean, that's kind of the essence of most of these initiatives. I think the key ingredient is to bring trust in a trustless environment, and therefore to allow to remove the friction, but replace it with an alternative that is viable, that is acceptable. Because, I mean, as we discussed many times, just because you have a technical infrastructure like a blockchain or something, I mean, that's great. That's an important precondition. But the technical layer alone doesn't give you the trust element. So you need to embed this into what you're doing, into your activities, into the smart contracts and token and assets that govern the transactions of this.
Cool. And maybe to finish, what topic are you talking about with your customers or the people here at Sibos? Any announcements that you have currently or recent issuance, for example, that you're sharing about?
Well, I think a very exciting development has been, as I mentioned earlier, on the use cases that we are developing now with the market. I mean, interesting fact that now it's a market coming to us with ideas instead of the other way around. In particular, we are looking at working together with our customers, banks, but also their customers, in particular asset managers, looking at how they can provide best-in-class service to asset management clients in terms of customized identities. customized investment strategies, sorry. So it is an age-old problem. It's something that if you look in the books in 1990s, they already talk about mass tailoring, mass customization, and so on. So far, it's not been resolved because the solutions so far have not been economically viable. And right now, what we're working on in collaboration with important asset managers in Switzerland, such as Pictet Asset Management, but also together with the Association of Asset Management in Switzerland, is how can we provide or enable this kind of individualized, client-centric offering, leveraging novel technologies. And it's interesting because so the idea of doing so is by basically fractionalizing the securities to make them very small so that the portfolios can be allocated with a variety of investments without constraints of size. And so instinctively you may think, well, if you do so, this becomes very complex to manage, to report, to rebalance, to make sure that you are always following the strategy at the right pace and so on. And we are looking at automation, smart contracts, and similarly leveraging also a more open architectures to look at how can we facilitate the composability that I mentioned before together with banks and asset managers. How can an asset manager define their strategy for their customers and we can embrace this strategy to ensure the portfolio composition is always matching the desire, the need, basically.
So executing the very detailed strategy of the asset manager. That's fascinating. I remember that's a topic we were starting discussing when I was there, so I'm happy that it's going there.
It's going very well, and right now we are looking into the future phases of. So we launched a pilot in summer this year, end of July, and right now we are working on the next phase, finding more interested parties beyond Pictet, of course, finding also other interested parties to work on this.
Very good. Any last words as we to conclude this nice conversation as always?
Very nice to meet again, as usual. Though I think it's. I often say it takes a village to make this work, to make this happen. You know, it's not scripted, but really, I think one of the main factors to push the boundary, to push it forward beyond the pilot phase of something, is really to have a like-minded individual across the spectrum, be it in the financial sector, but be it also in the important fundamental adjacent services or background or even foreground, actually, in some cases, like the work you're doing. So I'm sad on one hand that we are not the direct work colleagues anymore, but very happy to know that you're leading the charge in the identity space.
And I'm glad that you're leading the charge on the SDX side. I'm the 6th side now. Thank you so much.
Thank you.